time is 10 o'clock. Good morning. Here's the news at 10 on T-Solid Radio. I am Mobola Badekale. First, the major headlines. Federal government and over 10 billion naira project. Federal government demands nothing short of Igbo's extradition. Biden authorizes $100 million in aid for Afghan refugees. And in the world of sports, Nigeria's Adeshokon loses to Spanish opponent in badminton. The federal government over the weekend inaugurated and handed over 10 billion naira irrigation facility and 2,000 hectares of farmland to peasant farmers in Auyo local government area of Jigawa State. The project was initiated under the Adejia Valley Project and executed by the Adejia Jamare River Basin Development Authority HJRBDA, in collaboration with World Bank, will engage in all year-round farming. While handing over the farmland and irrigation facility to Jigawa State Governor Muhammadu Badaru Abubakar at Yamdi village in Auyo local government area, the Minister of Water Resources Sulaiman Adamu described the project as a fulfillment of President Muhammadu Buhari's pledge to the people of the area in 2018 during the 2019 general election campaigns. The minister said the project was initiated under his ministry's Transforming Irrigation Management in Nigeria Trimming Project, aimed at providing remedial works at the Adejia Jamare Basin. He then warned against delay in the execution of the project, stressing that the federal government would not tolerate any request for upward review of the contract sum, even as he appealed to the beneficiaries to make judicious use of the facilities and warned them against pilfering the equipment. The Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board (JAMB) has returned 2 billion naira to the federal government's Consolidated Revenue Fund from the excess generated from its operation during the conduct of 2021 Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination (UTME) and Direct Entry (DE) examinations. The board said the 2 billion naira returned to the government coffers was an interim remittance, meaning more returns may be made at the end of the board's activities before the end of the year. The figure was obtained from the board's weekly bulletin for this month and was confirmed yesterday in Abuja by the head of media and information, Dr. Fabian Benjamin. According to reports, a total of 1,338,687 candidates registered for the 2021 UTME, while 75,328 registered for the Direct Entry DE, and the examinations took place in June in 757 computer-based test centers. As Yoruba Nation agitator Sunday Igboho returns to court today in Cotonou, Nigeria, has demanded nothing short of his extradition. The federal government has communicated this position to the Benin Republic, which plans an extradition hearing. Igboho was arrested on July 19th at the Cotonou airport along with his wife Rockwell while attempting to travel to Germany. He was declared wanted by the Directorate of State Services DSS when he fled during a raid on his Ibadan residence and was put on the International Police Interpol watch list. He appeared in court twice last week in Cotonou, which the matter was adjourned to today. However, sources in government at the weekend told newsmen that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Justice handling the case had sent diplomatic communication to Benin about why it should extradite Igboho to Nigeria to face trial. The federal government has also promised justice and fairness for the agitator if released to face trial in Nigeria. Meanwhile, should the Benin government fail to release Igboho for trial, the Nigerian government will go into a diplomatic showdown with it. The measures to be taken may include, but not limited to, economic blockade. You are still listening to the news at 10 on T-Solid Radio. Still to come is the foreign and sports news. Do remember that you can download our app T-Solid on Play Store or log on to www.tsolid.tv. You can as well follow us on our social media platforms, all at T-Solid Radio TV. United States President Joe Biden has authorized up to $100 million in emergency aid for refugees from Afghanistan. The money, which comes from an emergency fund, will be used to meet the unexpected urgent refugee and migration needs of people in the country. The funds will also be available to those who worked with the United States military on the ground in Afghanistan and who have applied for special immigrant visas to the United States. Despite the recent territorial gains made by the Islamist Taliban, Biden has announced that Afghanistan mission will end on August 31st after almost 20 years. According to experts, anyone known to have worked with the United States military faces repercussion from the Taliban once the United States withdrawal is complete. The United States State Department has, however, announced its intention this week to house a number of Afghan former employees on a military base in the United States state of West Virginia. The first resettlement are scheduled to begin at the end of July. The president of Ethiopia's Amhara region has called on the residents holding arms to mobilize themselves against rebels from neighboring Tigray. Agegno Tashaga, who was quoted by newsmen, said starting from today, all people of age who are armed, either at governmental or private level, to mobilize for a survival campaign. The call to arms from Mr. Agegno follows a similar statement on Friday by the leader of Ethiopia's Afar region, leading to fears that the 8-month-long conflict in Tigray could spread. A spokesman for Tigrayan rebels have avowed they will liberate every square inch of Tigray, which includes disputed areas that have been occupied by Amhara forces since the beginning of the war. first direct commercial flights between Morocco and Israel are being launched on Sunday, following a deal to normalize relations between the two countries at the end of last year. Two Israeli airlines, El Al and Israel, are each carrying passengers from Tel Aviv to Marrakesh in the first of what are regularly scheduled flights. The agreement to normalize relations was brokered by the United States and followed the recognition by the Trump administration of Moroccan sovereignty over Western Sahara. Morocco was once home to one of the largest Jewish communities in North Africa and the Middle East, where around 3,000 remain, while hundreds of thousands of Israelis have Moroccan ancestry. Israel has pushed in recent years to renew and deepen diplomatic ties with the continent, while this week it was granted observer status at the African Union. Tanzania has received more than 1 million doses of the Johnson & Johnson coronavirus vaccine. They are part of the 25 million vaccines that the U.S. is sharing with the continent. Tanzania is beginning its vaccination campaign 4 months after the death of President John Magufuli, who was a prominent COVID skeptic. Meanwhile, just like other countries, priority for the jabs will be given to frontline workers and those at an increased risk of getting the disease, while the single-dose vaccine will be offered free of charge in all government hospitals. The country will also offer the jabs to those planning to travel abroad at a cost. It was gathered that the semi-autonomous Tanzanian island of Zanzibar began a vaccination campaign about 2 weeks ago using China's Sinovac vaccine. No data has, however, been shared on how many people have so far been vaccinated. It is also unclear how many doses the authorities received from the Chinese government. Eritrea and Burundi are now the only African countries yet to order vaccine through the COVAX scheme or the African Union's Vaccine Acquisition Trust. And finally, in the exciting world of sports this morning, Nigeria's Dorcas Adeshokon lost today to Clara Azurmendi of Spain in a opening game in the women's single event of the badminton competition at the 2020 Olympic Games. In the group play stage game of Group C fixtures at the Musashino Forest Plaza court in Tokyo, Adeshokon lost 0-2, 10-21 to 21. According to reports, the 23-year-old will go on to face An Se-young of South Korea on Tuesday evening at the same venue. This will be in another Group C fixture, which will determine a progress in the competition. Meanwhile, Nigeria's pair of Godwin Olofua and Anu Oluwapo Okwayori will later in the day return to the same venue. In continuation of the Group B campaign in the men's double event, they will take on the pair Kim Astrup and Anders Rasmussen from 6 p.m. Tokyo time. Rio 2016 champions Brazil were held 0-0 by Cote d'Ivoire in Olympic football on Sunday, while Egypt and South Africa lost to Argentina and France, respectively. Germany, France, and Spain also claimed first victories, and hosts Japan are the only side with maximum points. Coming off an opening 4-2 win over the Germans in a rematch of the Rio final from 5 years ago, Brazil found no opening against their African opponent. Japan, meanwhile, improved to maximum 6 points in Group A from a 2-1 win against 10-man 2012 gold medalist Mexico, who have 3 points, while Mexico are just as France, who came from behind 3 times in a late 4-3 win over South Africa. Spain moved top to Group C with 4 points past Australia from a 1-0 against them, which they will finish on Wednesday against Argentina, who got their first point in a 1-0 against Egypt. And with that, I've come to the end of the news. Here is a recap of the major headlines. Federal government hands over 10 billion naira project. Federal government demands nothing short of Igbo's extradition. Biden authorizes a $100 million in aid for Afghan refugees. And in the world of sports, you heard Nigeria's Adeshoko loses to Spanish opponent in badminton. To ensure to go by all precautionary measures to stay safe from COVID-19 as recommended by the WHO and NCDC. Do remember that you can download our app T-Solid and Play Store or log on to www.tsolid.tv. You can as well follow us on our social media platforms, all at T-Solid Radio TV. The news was compiled and edited by Akachi Chijioke. I am Mobola Bade Kala. Good morning and thank you for listening.